This winter, I imported over 20 games from Taiwan across 3 different platforms. Normally, we would just go over those games, but this time, I'm doing things a little differently. In addition to the imports, I will also be covering a few titles I pick up here in the US, and I will explain why. So in total, we are looking at 25 games in this video, some of which you might not have heard of before. Alright, let's get started. You know what? There are so many games that I don't even know where to begin. So I am breaking this video into 3 parts. First, the games I plan to buy in advance. Second, the games I decide to buy on the spot. And finally, the games that are also available in the US. Even though I wasn't there in person, I was involved in the entire process virtually. Therefore, I will be speaking from a first-person perspective. Let's kick things off with the action game, Samurai Maiden. When it first launched in 2022, it grabbed a lot of attention in Asia, but soon after its release, the game was hit with tons of negative reviews. There was even a report about a bug that could potentially break PS5. Despite the controversy, I still wanted to give this game a shot. For some reason, Samurai Maiden was still selling at a full price even a year ago, but this winter, it finally dropped to a more reasonable price. The game reminds me of Onichibara since they share similar gameplay and concepts. However, Samurai Maiden feels more like a low-budget title trying to sell at a AAA price. Next up, we have the horror game, Fatal Frame: Mask of the Lunar Eclipse. This is one of those games where I got lucky. I didn't pick it up a year ago because it was pricey, so I decided to wait. Last December, I asked a store manager about it, and he told me the PS4 edition was sold out already. I regretted not grabbing it while I had a chance, but I didn't give up. Then, just 2 weeks before we left, the game was restocked. I immediately asked the store to set one aside for me. Luckily, they were able to secure a copy. As far as I could tell, only a handful of copies were available. It was out of stock again right after I got mine. Mask of the Lunar Eclipse is a prequel to Maiden of Blackwater, which I imported a couple of years ago. They share the same gameplay style, but their stories are unrelated. Now let's move on to a PS5 game, Shenur, The Gate of Firmament, a Chinese RPG. This PS5 version was released in December 2024. The game originally launched on PC in 2015, followed by a PS4 release in 2017. I hesitated a bit before buying this one, thinking there might be a physical release in the US. However, I didn't want to take the risk, so I went ahead and picked it up. This edition includes all the DLC and features a higher resolution. Despite the fancy way they describe the battle system, at its core, it is still a turn-based RPG. Next, we have another Chinese RPG, Fate Seeker 2. This series is new to me. It's developed by the Taiwanese studio JSL. Interestingly, JSL started as a mobile game company, and its parent company is actually a real estate developer. That's pretty random, right? The first Fate Seeker was only available on PC, making Fate Seeker 2 their first console release. Its battle system reminds me of the Diablo series. Next up, we have the indie action RPG, Lost Epic. Its 2D side-scrolling gameplay reminds me of Odin Spear. The game has a lot of potential, but it's not very well known in the Western market. This is the Japanese edition, the only region that received a physical release. Next up, we have a couple of games from the Yohani the Parhelion series. This is a Love Live Sunshine spin-off. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with Love Live, but the series is very popular in Asia. Blazed in the Deep Blue is a 2D side-scrolling game similar to Lost Epic. while Numazu in the Mirage is a deck-building roguelite RPG. Despite being part of the same series, both games have completely different gameplay styles. Here is a funny story. I've been looking to get Blaze in the Deep Blue since last summer, but since I wasn't aware of Numazu in the Mirage, I simply asked for Yohani the Perhelion at the store. When they handed me Numazu in the Mirage, I assumed it was just a different cover. Then I realized it was actually a different game. I didn't mind adding it to my collection, but I still needed to head back to the store to order Blaze in the Deep Blue. Now let's move on to some Switch games. This one hasn't been released in the US, so I'm not sure of its official English title. It's part of the Sumiko Garashi series, and the direct translation will be Traveling in the Corner of Lun. The series has released several games on the Switch, each with a different gameplay style. This one plays more like Mario Party, featuring multiple mini-games. I might be a bit late to the series, but my goal is to collect as many of its games as possible. Speaking of Mario Party, I've got something neat to show you. A gift I received this time. It's a Super Mario Party Jamboree shopping bag. The store gave it to me during my first visit, even though I don't even own the game yet. Maybe I will give it a shot in the future. Last year, I came across a post about the Atrian Odyssey Origins collection. It immediately caught my interest because I didn't realize there was a physical release. Turns out it's a Chinese edition. This collection includes remastered versions of the first 3 games. I never got a chance to play Atrian Odyssey on the 3DS, and that's always been one of my regrets. Therefore, I am really looking forward to finally playing it. Now seems like a good time to talk about the games I decided to buy on the spot. Here is another Switch game. Nasumang 20th Century Summer Vacation. It's a life simulation game, but with a time limit since it takes place during summer break. Obviously, summer vacation doesn't last forever. I actually like this kind of setup for life sims. As a bonus, I also got a coaster as a gift. Definitely a nice surprise. One thing I really wanted to get this time was a Japanese baseball game. Apparently, MLB The Show is just too easy for me. I was decided between Professional Baseball Spirits on PS5 and the PowerPort 2024 to 2025 on PS4. I used to play PowerPort on the Game Boy Advance and have always wanted to revisit the series. Therefore, I ended up choosing PowerPort 2024 to 2025. Since this is a Japanese import, the language barrier will be the biggest challenge. It also wasn't cheap. This might be the most expensive game I pick up this time. I wasn't planning to grab River City Saga, Three Kingdoms next at first, especially since I still haven't opened the 2 River City games I picked up over the past couple of years. However, I learned my lesson from Fatal Frame Mask of the Lunar Eclipse. Get it before it's gone, so I ended up pulling the trigger at the last minute. This is the sequel to River City Saga Three Kingdoms, which I imported last year. I really should start playing those games soon. Next up is a game I bought from a new store. That time I got Reincarnated as a slime, Saga Chronicles. It's based on the light novel series and plays like an action RPG with some city building elements. In some ways, it actually reminds me of Nayuta and the Legendary Alchemists. The store I usually go to didn't carry it, so I had to visit a different one to pick it up. It's a much smaller shop and they don't offer any extra discounts. Therefore, I will probably only go there when I am looking for something more specific. I'm pretty sure a lot of you are familiar with Spy Family Operation Diary. In the US, it's known as Spy Anya Operation Memories. I'm surprised there is still no physical release here, especially considering how popular Spy Family is. I recently started reading the manga, so I figured I would give the game a try. is an adventure game that leans more toward life simulation. There's no combat, so no Thorn Princess missions. Instead, it centers around Anya's everyday adventures and sweet family moments. You know, I just realized I ended up picking up quite a few 2D side-scrolling games this time. Here is another one, Both Paths of the Teal Lotus. This game is often compared to Night Souls. Both feature 2D side-scrolling gameplay set in worlds inspired by Asian culture, and they were released around the same time. That said, Night Souls leans more toward a Souls-like experience, while both focuses more on platforming and exploration. Next up is probably the rarest find from this trip. Wolfan, Skullfan, Saturn Tribune Boosted. This collection came out in January 2025 and includes two classic shooters. It's not a mainstream title in Taiwan, so the store didn't even list it on their website. I only found out about it through their Facebook page, but by the time I visited, it was already sold out. Fortunately, they managed to track down the very last copy in their system. I will be honest, classic shooter isn't a genre I usually play. Picking this up was mainly for collecting purposes. We still have 9 more games to go. Now let's move into the final part of this video. The games that are also available in the US. First up is one of the most talked about JRPGs of 2024, Metaphor Refantasio. This is the PS4 edition, which isn't available in the US. I mainly pick it up for the free PS5 upgrade, so I can earn 2 sets of trophies. The game was developed by the same team behind the Persona series, and it's already received critical acclaim with very positive reviews. Next up is a visual novel, AI, the Sian Files Nirvana Initiative. If you are familiar with the series, you probably know that it usually sells out in the blink of an eye. That's not the case in Taiwan. You can still grab it for around $25. I've already finished the game before since my library had a copy available for checkout. To be honest, I prefer the first one. I didn't fully connect with the story in this one. Maybe it's because I rushed through it toward the end. Still, the Chinese edition has a separate trophy list, so I wouldn't mind giving it another go to earn another play now. Next up, we have Very Fancy F Refrain Core. I originally planned to get the PS5 edition here, but I found the PS4 version in Taiwan for less than $10. That deal was just too good to pass up. There's no way we would see that price over here. Refrain Core is a tactical RPG and a spin-off of Advent Dark Force. Since the series isn't exactly mainstream in the US, it had a pretty low print run, which is why games like this rarely drop much in price. Am I still planning to get the PS5 edition? I'm not sure. Maybe if it drops low enough. The cheapest I have seen so far is around $25. Alright, the next two games are from the Gumball series. Gumball Chronicles, Luminous Avenger X2 and Age Striker Gumball 3. Both had physical releases in the US through a limited run, which is basically equivalent to no physical release. As far as I know, Gumball 3 only got a physical release on PS5 here. Neither of these games were on my radar. I just spotted them while browsing the shops. They were on sale, so I thought, why not? If you are not familiar with the Gumball series, they are 2D side-scrolling action games. There is also an Age Striker Gumball trilogy enhanced coming to PS5 this summer, which will include all 3 main Age Striker Gumball games. That will be another great chance to pick up the full series. Before we check out the last 4 games, let's do a quick recap of this Taiwan pickup. I ended up with 21 games this time. I was aiming to keep it to 17, but as always, there were just too many I wanted to grab. Overall, I managed to get most of the titles I had planned, aside from a couple that were already sold out. I even came across a few surprises that were not originally on my list. I am really satisfied with how everything's turned out, and I'm definitely looking forward to visiting again next time. Now onto the final 4 games I pick up here, and there's a reason I wanted to include a link in this video. First up is a game many of you are probably familiar with, Atelier Ryza 3 for PS4. This was the final piece I needed to complete the entire Ryza trilogy. I had been searching for the PS4 edition for over a year. Most retailers had already sold out, and while a few places still had it in stock, they were asking full price. I was originally planning to import it from Taiwan this winter, but it turned out to be only about $10 cheaper. Honestly, it didn't feel worth the hassle. In the end, I bit the bullet and paid full price. It's one of those got you moments. You wait for a better deal, but the game just keeps disappearing until you are out of options. Next is another JRPG, The Legend of Nayuta, Boundless Trails. 2 years ago, I was planning to import this one. It was on sale for $25 at the time, but the store I visited didn't have it in stock, so I ended up passing. A few months later, the US physical release was announced. I made the same mistake again, waited for a big discount, and the game ended up selling out. You would think I would have learned my lesson by now, but luckily, a few copies were restocked this past January. I jumped on it right away and paid full price. Legend of Nayuta is an action RPG, and the gameplay feels pretty similar to the East series. It's not directly tied to the other Trails games. This one is more of a standalone adventure. Next up is a recent pickup, Bloodstained Curse of the Moon 2. This one was on clearance for just $18. I remember it being on clearance a few years ago too. Guess it's one of those games that goes on clearance every few years. It's published by Limited Run, so I had considered importing it myself. However, this turned out to be one of those rare cases where importing wouldn't actually save me any money, because it would have cost around $28 from Taiwan. This is a 2D side-scrolling action game, heavily inspired by the Castlevania series. Man, I have lost count of how many 2D side-scrolling games we have gone over today. Still, $18 for this one is a great deal. Glad I waited on this one. I guess not learning my lesson from Ryza 3 and Nayuta actually worked out this time. Last but not least, Shenur Mists Beyond the Mountains. Another entry in the Shenur series. This one is a remaster of the classic Shenur 3. The only Shenur I have played before was 2, so this will be a brand new experience for me. Funny thing, I recently found out this game hasn't even been released in Taiwan yet. The copies being sold over there were actually the North American edition. I even saw a few other North American titles on the shelf this time. Kind of funny if you think about it. I could have picked them up there and brought them back home to the US. Anyway, I ended up paying full price at $40. It dropped to $30 at one point, but I missed that window. And that wraps up this pickups video. I wanted to highlight those last 4 games because they were ones I originally planned to import. However, for one reason or another, I ended up buying them here instead. You might think I scored some great deals like the Fairy Fencer F. The actual cost of importing games is often way higher than the price tag you see. Not to mention the hassle of bringing them all the way back to the US. That's why I only import games that are not available here, are already sold out, or when the deal is just too good to pass up. Alright, that's it for today's video. Hope you enjoy it. Take care and I will see you soon.